Vikings take the win over the Chicago Bears last night in the first of the two double headers that we had here. 30-12 was the final score. Vikings improved to 12-2, which obviously means a lot with the Detroit Lions losing this past week to the Buffalo Bills. The race for the 1 seed is on for 3 teams, really, in the Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Detroit Lions. Tough game for the Chicago Bears. They've now lost 10 games? No, not 10 games in a row. This is 8 games in a row. They have now lost 8 games in a row. Sorry, I was getting my Monday Night Football losing streaks mixed up. We'll get to the team that's lost 10 in a row here in a little bit. But just overall, what's your thoughts on this game? Where do you want to start with the conversation of how it played out between the Vikings and the Bears?
I think we have to start with Caleb because I'm fascinated to know where you're at on kind of the spectrum of concern about Caleb, the player, and how you view him from prospect to pro, and where you kind of put on the continuum of it's all the situation, right? There's people out there who will argue, hey, the situation's been terrible. What a bad environment. We expected so much more with the receiving core, the investment in the O-line, bringing Shane Waldron in, and even seeing some slight improvements, right? When they dump Waldron and then Brown takes over running stuff, then they dump Eberflus and Brown gets even more control of the building as well. So I'm just interested, based on this game in particular, did it reveal anything to you about Caleb Williams that gives you more concern, or are you still in the camp that it's more about the environment?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't care about the season anymore for Caleb and the Bears. I don't think it means anything. Like, I don't think, even if he has 3 terrible games through the next 3 games of the season, I don't really care. The situation is very clearly not good in Chicago. It was very clearly unstable before the season even began, because what were we, like 3 games into the year, and they already had that like private meeting with Shane Waldron where Caleb and some of the top wide receivers, came to Shane Waldron and they were like, hey buddy, throw the ball deep down the field. Like, let's call something here and try to win a football game. So clearly, if you're only 3-4 games into the season, whatever that was, and you felt the need to go do that, they move on from Shane Waldron not too far after that. They elevate Thomas Brown, and then they move on from Matt Eberflus, who you could have made the argument should have been gone last season. Now that I understand they wanted to give him a fair shot with a better, more talented quarterback. Okay, I understand that. And there was some improvement last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which is his expertise. So I can see both sides of the coin, but very clearly moving on from him when they did, there just wasn't a lot of faith, and there was a lot of instability throughout this entire rookie season for Caleb Williams. And the thing is, with Caleb, I think that we just as a larger draft society, we love to say, hey, guy needs a little bit of time to develop. It's going to be a little bit of time in the league before he really is able to get confident, be able to see the best of his abilities and really mitigate those risks and those weaknesses. The best version of his NFL self is going to be a couple of years down the road. And then when we don't see it in the first 9 games of his rookie year, we go, what is wrong with this player? How is this player so bad? How are things so different? Well, because we already said they were going to look so different. So to me, the worrisome part about Caleb Williams is a little bit like what we saw with Bryce Young last year. Now, it's not quite to that extent, and Caleb has more physical gifts than Bryce does to make up for it. But Bryce looked lost last year. He looked lost at the beginning of the season. It's why he was benched. Ultimately, right now, that's what I think about Caleb. He's hesitant. He's thinking way too much. You can see it. He's in the pocket, and he's like, okay, I should look here, but the defense did something that I wasn't really used to. This isn't really what I thought. This isn't really how I played or what I saw when I was at USC. It was much more wide open, and you can sometimes see with him, whether it's where he moves his feet, where he moves his shoulders, or sort of like sometimes what he does with the ball, you go, man, he is just so gun-shy right now. He is so hesitant, and there are too many throws where there's a lot of hesitation. So the environment around him, I don't think helps. The offensive line, it's not the worst in the NFL. It didn't blossom the way that we wanted it to this year. I don't think the run game has been complimentary of him. And most importantly, he's just going to need time to see the field at NFL speed and NFL level against NFL defenses. That was always what it was going to take. And it's hard to even put this year into consideration, given how much chaos was there. When we talk about a guy learning at the NFL level, remember, we're not just talking about time. We're not just saying like, oh, okay, well, he's a couple of years in he's a couple of games, a couple of years in the league, he should be good. If he's not in the right environment, he's not really going to improve. We've seen this with Trevor Lawrence, right? Trevor Lawrence is, 3-4 years in the league now at this point, and Lawrence has gotten better in ways, but he's not the prospect and the player that we all thought he was going to be when he went number 1 overall back in 2021. So, like, that is another example of it's not just time. It's the correct amount of time. And for me, this season can't end sooner for the Chicago Bears. We cannot get to another coaching staff, offensive coordinator, and somebody to help Caleb Williams fast enough. So last night, honestly, was more of the same of what I've seen over the last 8 games with them being 0-8 in their last 8 contests.
And that's what concerns me, is that it's more of the same, that there aren't any even subtle signs of growth. I think the thing that jumped out to me early in the season, I kind of got it from their point of view, is they threw the mother load at Caleb Williams. They were like, you're running an entire offense. You are going to be Peyton Manning and Patrick Mahomes wrapped into one. And on the basis of the evidence we got, it was a foolish plan, right? And I understood what they were trying to do. We're going to have time to develop this guy. There isn't a ton of pressure here. I know people want us to make the playoffs, but if we can show growth in his game and we can get to a point in 2 seasons where we have someone who's mentally equipped to win from the neck up in the pocket and then can do all the creativity and all the magic after the snap, that is an absolute home run situation, right? That is what's going to elevate him into being one of the 3, 4, 5 best quarterbacks in the league. And that was clearly just a car crash. What is frustrating to me now, as they've changed the offense, they've stripped out a lot of the work he has to do pre-snap. They've said, you need to speed everything up. That he's just not processing things quickly. Mm-hmm. Everything they do is slow. They get out of the huddle slow. They call the plays slow. His decision-making is really, really slow. And I just get concerned now where I'm seeing a guy who, even in college, when people were showing the highlight plays, right, of the moving around and running around, he still had a great understanding of throwing to leverage, of throwing with anticipation, of throwing accurately to the middle of the field. And just none of that so far is translating to the NFL. And with the anticipation stuff, you can easily say a lot of that stuff in the league is trust and timing, right? Sam Darnold was not a great anticipation thrower before he got to Minnesota. He's been a solid anticipation thrower this year. It's about throwing to a landmark, right, and having trust in your receiver, the depth of the route, the timing of the route, having trust in the offense that you really believe someone will be there and that you have the right answer built in depending on the coverage, the rotation, post snap, all that stuff. So you could just park that in the, it's a trust situation, it's the environment thing. The anticipation will come, and we've seen it in flashes earlier in the season, particularly when he played against Arizona early in the season. There was a couple of really nice anticipation throws. But to me, he's just playing so much see it, throw it football, which you just cannot get away with in the league, and then turning down throws. You can't play see it, throw it football, and then when you see it, you decide not to throw it. And when you just start looking at some of the average time to throws versus where he's targeting on the field, and you're getting 3.4, 3.5, 3.6 seconds consistently while hitting 60% short of the sticks, it's like, what are we doing here? Either the ball has to come out now, quick, and you're going to anticipate it, and you're going to throw short of the sticks and get some yak with DJ Moore and these guys, or you're holding onto the ball to try and challenge intermediate or deeper down the field. And it's just so out of whack right now. And I'm with you. It just seems so confused and so lost. And even when his eyes and feet get to the right place, he just won't let the ball go. And so I don't know if it's more in the Bryce camp, because Bryce to me was way more panicky and fidgety and was confused and a little bit intimidated about what was happening with rotations and big guys chasing him down. This seems way more lackadaisical and just like, he's not been able to pick himself up to the NFL speed. He always played at his own pace in college football, that he just cannot elevate now to what the speed of the league is.
Well, I think that this is a good discussion of sort of players overall, but it's magnified when it's the quarterback position. Confidence is often the most important thing, right? We see players all the time who, the most talented ones in the league play with the most confidence as well. And even some of the players who maybe they don't have, all the talent in the world, maybe not the greatest physical gifts, but they're incredibly confident. I don't know why this player is the first one that came to my mind, but look at Kyren Williams, right? Kyren Williams isn't the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He's not the fastest guy, but he plays unbelievably confident at all times. And he's one of the best backs, most efficient backs in the NFL because of it. And that's just one example of you have to be able to play with confidence. And the part about Caleb Williams that made him so phenomenal at USC and Oklahoma is confidence. Not only did he have the physical gifts, but he believed in himself. He believed that he was that dude. Like every single time the ball snapped, he knew that everybody in the stadium was there to watch him. He knew that all eyes were on him. He knew that he could be the Superman and give people a play that was going to be talked about not only for everybody that was there watching it, but on ESPN and on all these broadcasts and across the world and everything. And he played like that. He played like he was that type of a quarterback. It is very hard to have that sort of play style and think that it immediately shows up at the NFL level. The two quarterbacks over the last 2 seasons that have been unbelievably impressive at those two things is C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels. Both of those guys being able to hit the ground running. When we talk about what we're so impressed with these young quarterbacks when they're able to stand out in their rookie seasons. To me, of course, like, pre-snap, post-snap evaluation, understanding NFL defenses, what you can get away with, what you can't, some of the big-time throws that you can layer in there. All of that stuff is obviously, talking points and things that are worth praising. But to me, it's truly the ability to, as a rookie quarterback, as a franchise quarterback, knowing that the world is on your shoulders. You worked your entire life to get to a level where you could be a high draft pick to the NFL, and now you're here. Now you're at the NFL level, and still just fully believing in yourself with no reservations. That is rare. And that is something that I knew was going to take time. With Bryce, it took him time to get his confidence back. I think we even see that with Richardson a little bit, right? I think we've seen that with Richardson. Now, obviously, he's still going through his inconsistencies. But to me, it was always going to take time with Caleb. Now, I was hoping that we'd see a little bit more flashes than what we have seen this season. I don't want to totally give him a pass and just let him off the hook completely. I was hoping that we'd see a little bit more from him. But it's hard to think that, certainly with all the voices that have been in his head in Chicago, and or I should say in his ears, with coaches or offensive coordinators or whoever it has been. And to me, Caleb just looks like somebody who needs a full offseason. He looks like somebody who just needs a full offseason with an offensive coordinator to have some sort of confidence in what he's going to have going into next season. So that is sort of where I'm at with Caleb Williams and the Bears. So now, in a grander conversation, I'll rope the Vikings in because I do want to talk about the Vikings here a little bit and just how legit they are as a number one seed. But that division's really damn good, right? We've got two teams that are competing for a one seed. We got two teams that have 12 wins. We got the Packers right on their heels. Chicago is so far in the rearview mirror you can't even see it. They're sitting there at 4-10. This is a team that was hoping that they were going to contend in a really good division, but certainly be in that conversation here with 3 weeks left in the season. They are not. Do you have, independent of Caleb, do you have less faith that this roster can compete if they get the right coach in there? Or do you still think, no, there's the right pieces here, and if you make the right hire, you could really see them be a lot more competitive next year if Caleb takes that next step?
Yeah, I think that you can turn things around really quickly. Look, if they were not arrogant enough to not get in the Jim Harbaugh business because everyone there was terrified about their own jobs, we could be having a different conversation right away, right? So we saw what Harbaugh did going straight into the Chargers roster. I looked at when that thing is creaking. Those guys are old. I don't think the young talent's really there. They've left them with a dump, and he turns it around in a flash and makes them competitive in a way I just didn't expect. And so I could certainly see someone coming in and having that kind of turnaround. But I just look around and go, okay, maybe there's someone out there, Ben Johnson, whoever it is that people are linking to the gig, Mike Vrabel, who said, I thought Caleb Williams was a one-of-one type talent. I had him graded like Andrew Luck, and so I want to do anything I can to be in the Caleb Williams business. But you've also got to have Ben Johnson look around going, I'm in this current building with the Lions. I don't want to go compete with that thing every single season for the next 4, 5, 6 years. That's going to be really difficult to do, let alone the other franchises hanging around there and what the Vikings and O'Connell have been able to do. Then you've got to deal with Green Bay and Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. Like, it is a murderer's row to say I will step into that division just coach to coach. You got to go against Dan Campbell and Matt LaFleur every season and Kevin O'Connell. Like, that's just a really tough assignment. So someone I think is going to have to believe in Caleb Williams so much to get the right candidate in there. And I do worry. I just don't think they evaluate talent as well as we all expected they did. I think it's been bore out now that Ryan Paul's record is just not as solid as it should have been given the ammunition they've had to do this. And maybe those guys in different systems with a different coach and a stronger environment could work out. But it's pretty clear to me the building is pretty rotten, right? One thing that stands out with Caleb that has been bothering me for a long time, and I wrote about this a few weeks back, is he gets crushed a lot and no one cares. And that to me is really poisonous in the building. When your offensive line, who is essentially blaming the quarterback for holding onto the ball too long, that's what's happening there, right? We can gather that. But to not be interested in helping him up. When they played the Patriots and he got dumped 9 times, no one cared about picking him up. So what can you do with that? Do you say, well, we think with a better coach, better O-line coach, better system, these players we've drafted, the resources we poured in can be better. Well, if there's a fracture there between those guys and the quarterback, and we're about building confidence in the most important person in the building, what do you even do with that? How are you able to move people on in order to protect the young quarterback? So I have as many people have said, and as the reporting's been out there, my number one thing going into that job would be, I need to figure out what's going on upstairs. Who is running this show? Is it Warren? Is it Poles? Who's in charge here? Is there a way I can clear out the whole building if people want Ben Johnson badly enough? I think it needs a total top to bottom reset. But if I was just a pure offensive mind and I'm looking around at the landscape of the league and I can just see a talent who is right there, right for the taking, and I just walk into a job and not have to worry about the draft evaluation process, I would run over mountains to go and work with Caleb Williams. I think he's an unbelievable talent.
Mm-hmm. I do want to talk about Minnesota just, before we move on to the other Monday Night Football game. There's not too much to say about Minnesota that we haven't said already. I think Kevin O'Connell should be front runner for Coach of the Year. What Sam Darnold has been doing is perfect? No, but incredible, certainly, given his track record and just even in an independent state. I mean, he is a top 3 quarterback in terms of big-time throw percentage. I mean, he has been incredible this season. He's got a bevy of options to give the ball off to, whether it's Aaron Jones out of the backfield. Jordan Addison's been unbelievable. We all know what Justin Jefferson can do, and certainly with TJ Hockenson back there, the offensive line is playing better, and I don't know many offensive lines in the NFL that could lose a guy like Christian Darrisaw and still be a really good unit. So Vikings just hat tip to them, and certainly what Brian Flores does on the defensive side of the football. Now, when I look at them in the number 1 overall seed race, Minnesota's got Seattle, Green Bay, Detroit, and then Detroit has Chicago, San Francisco, Minnesota, so a little bit easier for Detroit there. And then Philadelphia's got Washington, Dallas, and the Giants. So we think at a minimum, the Eagles and the Lions are going 2-1 down the stretch. The Vikings are the ones with the tougher test. They're at Seattle this upcoming week, and then it's versus Green Bay, and then it is at Detroit to end the season, potentially with the number 1 seed on the line. So Minnesota does have that tougher schedule of those 3 teams. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I still think they're right there in that race. And Ollie, this is a team that can make a Super Bowl run. I really do feel that way about Minnesota.
They have that magic feeling, right? It feels a little bit like Foles and the Eagles that season, where you've got this maniacal defense that's just doing all kinds of crazy, wacky things. They actually weren't that unorthodox last night compared to, when Flores goes true psycho and rolls out all the fun stuff, and Caleb Williams still struggled with it. But what last night I thought was important was, as you mentioned, Darnold for the last month has been unbelievable, right? He's been playing at the highest possible level. He hasn't been protected so cleanly. You mentioned losing Darrisaw, and the way they've been able to just roll Robinson in there has been impressive, but it's not like it's been at the exact same level, right? He's been under a bunch of fire and has just delivered huge shots under pressure. So I thought last night was important because they got a average to sloppy Sam Darnold game, right? Where he made some impressive throws. He kind of hit what was open. And then he had a couple of disaster plays where he made poor decisions or was trying to throw the ball away and got picked off. And they were able to overcome that and win comfortably and cruise through it just because of how solid they are defensively, how explosive they are defensively, and able to create turnovers. And they just have, to me, almost a classic playoff formula, which is you can create explosives on offense. You can engineer them because you have such a talented receiver. You can control the line of scrimmage in the run game. And then can you defensively, you're not going to be able to hold everyone under 25 points running through that NFC, right? It's just not going to happen. But are you chaotic enough? Are you talented enough to just create turnovers? Can you get 2-3 game-breaking plays either side of the half to flip a playoff game? And they, to me, just with the way that they run things and how talented those guys are, I think we lose that in the conversation, right? Because it's all about Flores and the system. Just how unbelievably talented they are up front now, and surviving Stephon Gilmore not even playing last night. So they, to me, just have a real classic recipe for going through the playoffs, and just the way the field is opening up for them. I still don't have complete faith in the Eagles offensively to just be efficient in the postseason and not kind of stub their toe and have turnovers. And then the Lions, with all the injuries just racking up, at some point the major Jenga block's going to go, whichever one it is. Is it Carlton Davis? Is it Montgomery? Is it someone else down the line? Is it McNeil? It just seems like it's lining up nicely for the Vikings. I think their expectation now should be, we will be in the NFC championship game with a chance in the second half to go and get to the Super Bowl. And we may not be the most talented team, but we have enough of a formula to be able to get there.
Yep, they absolutely have the reason to believe that they're going to get to that point. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.